of the regular meeting of the Village Board of Trustees to order at 6:43 p.m. If we can all please rise for the, I'm sorry, I apologize. I was just checking to see if you're on your toes. If we can have Pastor James Hunt come for the invocation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Could we all bow in prayer? Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised in the village of Monee. For today is the day that He has made, and because His mercies are new and tender every day, we will rejoice and be glad in it. For great is His faithfulness, and we thank You for a new year as we embark upon a new beginning. And so, Lord, it is that we welcome Your presence in this place, and especially in the lives of Your people. We humbly pray You may continue to be gracious to us and bless us as we come together to do Your work and Your will. We pray for a fresh anointing for the officers of this village that have been chosen by Your people to govern. Empower them to do what is just. Encourage them to demonstrate mercy and inspire them always to humbly carry out their assignments in such a way that we become a beloved community. Now, O Lord, in this hour, grant this body the gift of wisdom and discernment to reason together so that we would achieve understanding and unity through the counsel of many. In all matters, help us to trust in the Lord and do good so that we may have good success. Finally, we pray for peace, for a peace that passes all understanding, and for a love for one another that never fails. And it is in the name of the mighty, the magnificent, and the matchless name of Jesus Christ that we declare it all. And together the people said, amen, amen, and amen. God bless you.
Thank you. If we can all please now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. For roll call, we have Trustee Gonzalez. Here. Trustee Horn.
Here.
Trustee Razik. Trustee Rakes. Trustee Wilson.
Present.
Trustee Udris.
Present.
And may I please have a motion to select Trustee Doug Horn as Mayor Pro Tem?
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Trustee Horn.
Yes.
Trustee Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Udris.
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Yes.
Thank you, trustees, for that vote of confidence. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have a few things on our agenda to consider today, but we're going to start off with open to the public, which would be, at this point in the agenda, just agenda items only. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you have a comment, please come to the podium at this point. Okay. No takers on that. Consent agenda. I have a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Okay.
Trustee Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Udris.
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Yes.
Trustee Horn.
Yes. Thank you. Clerk Kojo, do you have a report for us or any comments tonight?
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to first state that Trustee Rakes had an emergency, and she did notify us this morning. And it was, however, within outside of the 48 hours time frame. So I just wanted to reiterate to everyone, all the trustees, just in case there is a time when you wanted to dial in, as she did. As per our ordinance 1810, you must notify the village clerk 48 hours or more prior to the said meeting that you're wanting to dial in or video for. Also, I did misspeak at the last meeting regards to early voting. The original date for the primary would have been March 15th. However, the governor has changed it to June 28th. So there's a larger gap in between there. So it will be June 28th will be the main primary day. And I will, of course, give information as it comes along when we put the early voting information together. End of report.
Do you have any, do you know why he changed it?
Yes, so it was changed due to the census data coming back late as a result of the COVID pandemic.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No mayor's report, I'm assuming, tonight. And how about administrator's report?
Thank you, Trustee Horn. Good evening, everyone. First item under my report is the Ruby, Margaret, and Will Center water main improvements. It's a pay request, partial number 1. The village has recently received payout request number 1 from Iroquois Paving Corporation for work completed on the reference project. Robinson Engineering and village staff have reviewed this invoice and determined that it's in substantial compliance with the plan specifications. Robinson Engineering and staff recommend that Iroquois Paving Corporation is entitled to payment of $516,516.89. Board action request is a motion to approve pay request number 1 to Iroquois Paving Corporation for the work completed on Ruby, Margaret, and Will Center Road, the water main improvement project in the amount of $516,516.89.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any comments?
So, and I'll just make the comment, or for public knowledge or something, Administrator, this is a partial payment, and this was in the budget and in the original contract for their payback, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Roll call?
Trustee Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Udris,
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
Trustee Horn.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item under my report is the Monee Police Department Collective Bargaining Agreement, Teamsters Local Union 700. The Village of Monee Management and the Police Department Teamsters Local Union 700 members have met on numerous occasions to negotiate the harmonious agreement covering all rates of pay, hours of work, and conditions of employment applicable to bargaining unit members and the village. The terms of this collective bargaining agreement, if approved by the Village Board of Trustees tonight, would become retroactive, covering a contractual period of May 1st, 2020 through April 30th of 2025. The board action requested is a motion to approve the agreement between the Village of Monee and the Teamsters Local Union 700, the Monee Patrol Officers, covering a contractual period of May 1st, 2020 through April 30th of 2025.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Okay, discussion?
So, and I'll just, again, I'm sorry, just make the comment, very pleased with the amicable way all parties handled themselves without incident or anything with this, this time around. So we, I guess, can say, as a group, we're very grateful to all of you.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, definitely a thank you to all those involved, working so hard to come up with, I think, a very fair agreement, so very
Definitely.
happy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Shall we go for a vote?
Trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
Trustee Horn,
Yes.
Trustee Razik, Trustee Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Udris.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is the T-Mobile draft agreement. It's for review and consideration. So each one of the trustees has been handed a draft agreement between T-Mobile and the village. As the board is aware, Tower Number 1, which currently has T-Mobile antenna equipment on top, is scheduled for demolition sometime midsummer. And once that is down, it'll nullify the current contract with T-Mobile. They've requested to relocate the antenna on top of our newest tower, Tower 3 in Eagle Fair. And so this draft is for your review and consideration. And hopefully we will have finalized this, which we believe we're pretty close right now, but it'll be ready for the next board meeting for your approval. Correct. No action needed tonight. And the last item under my report is a presentation from White and Associates, and this is in regards to the recent traffic study that was conducted at Ridgeland in Manhattan Monee Road. And just for the boards, as a reminder, and to also the public, the village is currently in negotiations with some developers in the area of Ridgeland and Monee, Manhattan. And there is some concerns, as I'm sure most residents are aware, especially if you live on the west side of I-57. Much traffic in the last 4 years has been experienced. It's been quite a task on the police department, the fire department, and so we have requested White and Associates to conduct a traffic study for us. And without further ado, we have Griselda from White.
All right.
It's all yours.
Thank you, Administrator Bautista. Thank you to the board for allowing us the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Griselda Monsivais. I'm a transportation engineer at White & Company. White & Company is a full services engineering and architectural firm based out of Darien, Illinois. We also have offices in Chicago. Here supporting me tonight, we have our President of Transportation and Infrastructure, Mike McMurray, as well as our Director of Local Municipal Services, Reagan Pattison. So we're happy to be here to kind of talk about our findings. You know, we started talking with Administrator Bautista in the fall of last year, and kind of started to assess what the conditions are with respect to not just the intersection, but the village of Monee and their concerns with respect to the influx of development, traffic, and operations of the intersection. And we know that there's a series of ongoing studies right now. Will County has a phase 1 study where they're looking at Manhattan Monee planning studies. And then we also know that the CLOA study was recently completed for the north part, for the potential facility development that you guys are in discussion with, or that the village is in discussion with. And just kind of wanted to see, you know, the village wanted us to see what the impacts are on the community, on the intersection, weighing the concerns with the increases in traffic. And the study that we recommended was a traffic impact study. Now, this can be done in a number of ways. You know, our findings, or our discussion today is going to be kind of built around a comparison of what the CLOA study, what their findings were, versus the traffic impact study that was performed by White & Company and their traffic engineers. So both findings, you know, the data and the background, it's similar. The traffic counts were taken at about the same months, the peak periods for the Amazon Fulfillment Center on the northwest corner. In the months of November and December. CLOAs were taken December 4th, White's November 18th, so kind of peak periods there. The numbers were slightly different, the counts. Our counts were a little higher. I believe there might be just some small anomalies there, nothing major. Then we take what we do with that information is we take it and then we run it through highway capacity software to kind of determine, based on your existing conditions, the lanes of traffic and what you have with your signalized intersection there, to determine, you know, how it's functioning. What are the operations? What are the storage lanes? How long do cars have to wait to get through a light? And then we apply a level of service. Right now, both studies found that intersection is currently operating at a level of service of C, which is nominal. You know, it's not optimal. Usually you want an A or a B. These days it's kind of hard to get. So it's at a C right now. And then the next step that was done, the CLOA study basically did, what their study did is it focused more on the impacts from the development. You know, the influx of the volume of vehicles and what's that going to do to the north leg. So that was their focal point. Our study focused more on the intersection as a whole. So it took into account what's going to happen with that north leg, what's going to happen with that northwest corner, or what's happening now, I guess, with the Amazon Fulfillment Center there. And then we projected it out. The study that the CLOA did projects it out to a construction year, meaning if we were to start planning for a study for construction to happen now, 4 or 5 years down the road, what's going to happen? Where's the intersection operations? What are they going to be like? So they took it out to 2026, which is pretty standard, about a 5-year period. And then ours took it there, but then we also factored in future projections, meaning in 2050, what are those operations going to look like? And the reason that we go so far out, into 2050, is because that's standard criteria for when you're planning a full-blown intersection reconstruction. So if the village or the county were thinking, how much more capacity are we going to need in the future, these are the projections that get factored in. But then we also looked at the impacts from the development and did a comparison of if those numbers are growing, how do they align to those 2050 numbers? Are they off? Are they close? And then went through and evaluated the intersection. So one of the things that we did is Ruben shared some drone footage that I believe was done by Robinson, your village engineers, and we went ahead and we calibrated the traffic to the peak hours, meaning at the highest hour of traffic. How did it look in video? And so that's kind of what we have here today. It's just basically a view showing corresponding to the AM peak number. There we go. And that just kind of shows you, looking westbound there, what those numbers, what the volumes look like during the highest hour of volume for traffic. And let's see. And then that's the AM, and the that is the peak. I would believe is. Let me see what. I believe it's like 6:45, 6:30, 6:45 in the morning was when the peak hour was detected there. So a pretty accurate representation of what's being there. Yeah, the morning peak hour occurs from 6:45 to 7:45. And then the evening peak hour is occurring between 5:30 to 6:30. And so that's what we have there. And that's, this view here is looking southwest towards the Amazon Fulfillment Center there. So the CLOA study did not really look at the intersection as a whole. The focal point was just that north leg. Our study looked at the south, at the whole intersection, and our findings have concluded that that both studies show a level of service of C. However, we're showing close to failure or a lower level of service for the that northbound right turn lane. So on the south leg of Ridgeland as cars are turning to the right, and then the westbound left turn lane. So in the westbound direction along Monee, heading south there. That's under existing conditions. What we did then is after we went through and modeled our capacity for 2026 and 2050 numbers, then we came up with additional capacity needs or additional geometric needs configurations, that will be needed to support the influx of vehicular traffic down the road for the intersection. And then just another thing that we did here is look at the accidents, and that's something else that we do as part of our traffic analysis, is we get 5 years of traffic or crash data from the Illinois Department of Transportation, and then we generate a plot and conduct what we call a crash analysis, which looks at the nature of the crashes and the clusters. And what we're looking for here is clusters of accidents, is meaning where are they happening and what can we do to improve the intersection to make it function better and to reduce the crashes. This one found a cluster right at the center of the intersection. For some reason, we looked at the profile, we looked at the sight lines, and it's really the traffic that's coming from the west. So eastbound traffic moving east towards the interchange. For some reason, there seems to be an accident issue there at the intersection. And couldn't figure out if that's related to, it's definitely not sight lines. We think it's really related to the operations, meaning as you're moving east, in the eastbound direction, you have more openness, and then you start to come into that bottleneck. Yeah, go ahead. I think they were sort across the board, because we look at dry conditions, we look at snow, rain, dark, light, and they were kind of all across. And then I try to look at them with regards to maybe exiting the Amazon fulfillment facility, and so we're just kind of trying to figure out what it could be. Like for instance, if we would have seen the accidents closer to those access points at the facility, then it would have been like, okay, you know what, this means that we may make a recommendation to maybe move those access points a little further to the south to try to increase your circulation within the parking before it spills out onto the road. But that's not something that we're seeing here. So that would definitely just require just a little bit more analysis to try to figure out how we can resolve that in terms of a crash modification factor. And let's see, what else? So here, we kind of just came up with some exhibits showing you what the existing conditions are, how many lanes of traffic you have, and then did a plot superimposing what the recommendations are based on the findings of the study. So as we move ahead here, we've got in current conditions, we would say that the recommendation is for an exclusive. Well, I guess what I'm saying is, let's see, we have an issue with that northbound right turn lane, and then the second capacity issue happens to be with that eastbound with the westbound to southbound left turn lane, and that's under existing conditions. Here, those are just what would we do now in a what would we do now scenario. The 2026 or construction year that we're saying, we're recommending, obviously, we're dual right turn lanes in the northbound direction, so north to east, and then increasing essentially 2 through lanes in the eastbound direction. So the green arrow moving in the eastbound direction basically indicates that we would want 2 receiving lanes. One to allow the traffic navigating from the dual rights, and then 2 through lanes with essentially that second through lane, and you can't see it here in the exhibit, dropping off at Sunset. So it would basically just help improve the operations of the intersection with that short-term kind of fix. You don't need such a long stretch of a lane. That's what that would do. And then obviously, and then there's more, this is more future conditions. And that's in a 2050 scenario, meaning we're going to reconstruct the intersection. What would we do? And that shows a second through for both directions on Monee. So that's probably close to what the phase 1 is recommending for the ongoing Will County study. The rest of the information is mostly meant for the village of Monee to armor, your knowledge with respect to what your intersection needs are, knowing that there's this phase 1 that's happening, and understanding that both studies conclude that the development doesn't really have a big impact on the intersection. It's more so related to the operational needs on Manhattan, and then just some minor fixes that will help flush that traffic out of that northwest corner as it is now. And that's about where we're at. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Yes. For the 2050
Yes.
numbers, what factors did you take in consideration for the future development or traffic needs?
So the 2050 numbers are based on traffic projections that we get from CMAP. So CMAP issues those numbers, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. So they do these, they build these models based on linkage studies and future improvements at different interchanges, and they plug the information in. And so then whenever you're going to look at a potential reconstruction or widening project, you request that information from them, which then you kind of come back and you evaluate. And we went back and forth with their planners, and just made sure that they were aware of the potential facility planning, and they kind of look at that. So if there's any other major mobility studies that are happening at Will County, at the county level, or longer term studies, they're factoring all of that in. So a lot of times, if there's a study that's going to happen and then all of a sudden you hear it's not going to happen, they remove that link and then they give you that data, and then we use that data in turn to evaluate what the impacts are. They're looking at the big picture. For communities such as yours, we're looking at the smaller, at how it's going to impact, the local streets, the township streets, because that in turn gives you the knowledge to see if, there's any type of funding strategies that you can seek out, kind of now knowing what the intersection needs are going to be for a future condition.
Okay. And for the future projections,
Yes.
do they also take in consideration the undeveloped property?
That is, I know they use census information. It's part of their major planning. I would probably, I would be hesitant to answer that, but I do know that they look at future growth and projections. So they're looking at their data, they're tracking what the growth projections are. And then, also if there's any ongoing planning studies or comprehensive plans from the village, those numbers are kind of feeding into that. So, sometimes it does take a little tweaking. I've been involved in studies where we've kind of had to go back and look at those and have gone back and forth and say, remove this because that's not going, or did you factor in, like in this case, we said, did you factor in this 900,000 square foot facility? Yes, we did. Did you look at this? And then at the same time, we take the numbers from these development studies and we plug them in to our analysis with and without. So we're kind of looking at both and at everything synergistically.
One last question.
Yeah.
It's just how feasible would it be for us to move up one letter grade from a C to a B?
Well, I mean, these smaller scale improvements, like for instance, being able to provide those dual northbound rights and that through lane, which right now is striped, might be something that improves the operations to a C. Because like I said, right now it's a C as a whole, but it's being dragged down by those two lower level. It's not failure, I don't want to say that, but it's definitely lower graded. It's like a level D, you know? So it's not failing now, but in 2026 it probably is going to be, you know? And if there's a greater influx of traffic, then maybe even a little bit more sooner than that. So, you know, this is a short-term fix, but, you know, it could definitely be incorporated as a smaller scale with different funding strategies. So you have the one, but then you have the ongoing long-term 2050
Gotcha.
reconstruction study. So it can be done, you know, in sync.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, no problem, no problem.
So that being said, so that Phase 1 Will County study also takes into the same consideration using the CMAP data that
Yes.
you guys are.
Correct.
And I wonder if that coincided or was taken, you know, before we finished our comprehensive plan, when we've, you know, before we got these.
Right, so that would be something that we can go back and compare, because I mean, that's raw data that we get from CMAP, and
Yeah.
that's just if it's available. You know, a lot of times, and I've been following the Phase 1, the Manhattan-Monee Phase 1, and they'll provide some numbers, but they're not really providing that raw data. But on behalf of, you know, Monee, I think you guys can make that request, and a comparison can be made to really just dig a little deeper and make sure that
Reagan was
You know,
nodding a little bit there.
Yeah. Just to make sure that the comprehensive plan involves that, because then, you know, there's other options. There's, for instance, you can take that part and update your comprehensive plan accordingly without having to like revamp the whole thing. So there's like different components that CMAP will work with you on when they do their call for projects in October.
So, and that's, you know, and I will just say too, that the whole project has me a little scared at this point too. If you're looking at part of it being a failure and getting us up to a grade C, that tells me that there's cause for concern at that area already. So it just pretty much confirmed what we had thought.
Right, and it's just a matter of you guys, you know, the village being informed. You know, this is what you can do, and now you have a way to have a discussion, intentional discussion with Will County that says this is what we need. And, you know, with this being a township road and them being the county and they're leading the studies, you can start having a voice and discussing the impacts of the Manhattan-Monee Road study with this knowledge in
Right.
hand. So,
And-
is there any other questions?
So, and you said this was, you know, basically a 12-hour study over the entire day through both peak periods, or a 24-hour?
Yeah, so we set up MyoVision cameras.
So
at
that's
the
exactly what I was
intersections
going to
of
ask
video.
about then too, because I would love to hear, do you have like sheer numbers of how many cars went through there?
Yes, we have, it's a lot of data. So we basically go through, and our study actually kind of shows you, then we go through and we count the data, and we tabulate it into tables that show, you know, your eastbound, your northbound, and you do have all of that, and it's divided by legs, and you have access to all of that information.
Oh, we do? Okay, it's in here.
I
I'm
don't
sorry,
know.
thanks.
I brought copies. It's up to, you know, I was going to drop off a couple of
Because I'm
hard
a
copies
numbers
with
geek, I'd
administrative.
love to hear that.
If I could just pipe in real quick.
Sure.
So on
Oh,
the
look at this.
2021 study, that 24-hour report that you did, and I want to make sure I'm doing this right, if you had the math in each direction, it comes to 32,274 in that 24-hour period, which was in November of 2021. Am I correct? Am I reading that? So each direction, we added up each direction
Yes.
for a total of over 32,000 vehicles in a 24-hour period, which
Right.
is kind of eye-opening. Didn't realize it was, you know, that much.
6 times the size of our town.
Yeah, the existing 24-hour count here. 13, 23, 28, 31. Yeah. Yeah, this more or less, I mean,
Love it.
shows you what the existing ADT is there. And then we just break it down by leg so that you can see what those numbers are. So it's just good information to have because
Yeah.
it directly impacts the community.
It sure does.
And especially because you have these studies that are ongoing. You know, a lot of times it's like, lack of information. Now you have this and you can use it to your advantage. So it's there. And then I just, if there's no other questions with regards to the TIS, I just wanted to just touch up on the other minor study that we did.
Well, I had just one more question before
Yeah,
you,
go ahead.
before you went forward, because you did talk somewhat about accidents that occurred in that area. Were you also measuring the number of traffic stops and everything else that happened, and it's to start to get an idea of the burden that it puts on our police department just in that one area?
No, because the information that we get is from IDOT, so it's and it's just documenting police reports. So just anything with anything that requires the oh my gosh, what's the name of that form? The SB 100 record that gets sent to Springfield. They're plotting that information and then they provide it to us. So anything outside of that, unfortunately, does not have is not considered here.
Mhm.
You know, but we can talk about that a little bit more based on just based on the data that we were able to gather with regards to the police department. We did it was a workload evaluation, kind of using the data that Ruben was able to gather for us, and it was basically just focused on the number of incidents that are being reported as a result of the Amazon Fulfillment Center. So just that, no bearing on what the workload capacity is with the current police force. Okay, so where you're at with regards to your resources, how maxed out or what your numbers are right now. We didn't look at that because that would require just a more in-depth study. Just wanted to be able to kind of talk a little bit about the impacts of the Amazon Fulfillment Center, kind of navigate it through taking this data and finding a way to plot it so that it can be usable. Or we could determine what the next steps are here to kind of increase whether there's a need for additional resources or what. But basically, the Village of Monee right now, you guys have about 5,148 residents, and this is based on current census data. The Fulfillment Center has 5,000 employees. They have plans to increase to 7,500 in the next coming years. We don't know how far out. And then we kind of looked at the shift changes between 5 and 7 a.m. and 5 and 7 p.m. Then without really knowing how many employees there is for shift, we kind of made one assumption, and we said, okay, so there's 1,700 parking spaces. So let's say 1,500 people can be there per shift. From there, at the peak hour, at the November, December times, based on the ability to accommodate this, we wanted to generate what the increases are to the village's daytime population. So then we saw this bump up to 25%. And then we kind of went into the data and looked at a couple of ways in which different police chief associations look at the police needs. Traditionally it's always been a very basic average ratio, full-time officers per 1,000 residents. And that's kind of how the smaller communities have maybe backed into kind of determining what their resource needs are. And then just knowing that doesn't include daytime populations, we wanted to just dig through this information a little bit more, and we came up with a way that was outlined in one of these police manuals to generate a total service time, meaning what are the impacts of the number of the number of incidents having on the police based on time. How many more minutes are the officers spending tending to, calls for service at this fulfillment center alone? And that's not looking at where you're at now. So outside of the fulfillment center, we don't know. We don't know where your base is. But we can tell you that based on information plotted over the last 3 years, we were able to convert the total increase in service hours to generate what the total impact is. And we came up with the increase in 2019 was increase of 614 hours, 2020, 654 hours, and then 2021 was 400. But that didn't include all of the data for December. So, that probably represents the lower number. We don't have that. And that's kind of as far as we were able to get, because the next step obviously, involves, if we're looking at capacity, then that's a little different. Most information tells us that there should be a rule of 60 that's following, meaning that you don't want the officers attending to calls more than 60% of their shift. So then that kind of looks into your operations. How many officers are there per shift? Do you have to increase the numbers when, the fulfillment center there's increased operations there in the months of November and December? So there's a variability factor there. And to get into that, it's gonna take more time. But this just kind of gives you an idea and a number so that you could see the impacts that the influx of calls is having on the police force as a start. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Okay. I've got extra copies here for you.
Okay, let's turn to officials' reports. I will start out with Public Works. Water shutoffs are scheduled for tomorrow, January 27th. As of last count, there were just now 9 utility accounts with past due balances that are subject to disconnection. These shutoffs were originally scheduled for the week before Christmas, but we postponed them for the holiday season, and I think that was the right thing to do. The village took delivery of our first salt shipment of the season, which was 294 tons were delivered on January 14th. We have another 426 tons available to purchase this season under the current contract. And again, kudos to our plowing team, and they've done an excellent job last, I guess, about a week or so, week and a half, that we've had heavy snowfall. Painting crews are in this week working on the new building department facility on Wilson Street. New flooring has been installed. Installation of data and networking equipment will begin once the painting is completed, assuming there are no further delays, and that's always a big assumption. Being involved in construction myself right now, we are aiming for completion in 2 to 3 weeks. So that means at some point in the very near future, if you have a building permit you need, some kind of construction permit, you'll be going over to the Wilson Street facility for that. End of report. And now I will turn things over to Trustee Gonzalez.
Thank you, Trustee Horn. A few things tonight. You just saw the last couple weekends, we've been having spring baseball and softball registration going on now through February 12th. Ages 5 through 14-year-old, both boys and girls, for baseball and softball. And information can be found on the village website. Also coming up is Valentine's Arts and Crafts classes. Information can be found in our newsletter. It's also on our website and the Parks and Recreation Facebook page as well. The Fireman's Park building is now available again and open for your next party. So you can start booking for your summer dates already. And this cold weather is Parks and Rec thinking about summer and planning a fun summer with Governor State soccer team, the Will County Forest Preserve, Monee Reservoir, and a senior expo and more. A couple other things. Yes, we're thinking about the summer weather, and already plans are being made for Kids Day in July and starting looking at things for Fall Fest already in September. So if you have ideas for that, have any wants or needs, or bring, blasts from the past, please contact Parks and Rec Diana Kroll at 534-8302 for that. And the last thing I wanted to mention too is about our Sims family that suffered the fire and the great loss a couple weeks ago. Thank you to everybody in this town who has come forward in a big way, being able to donate items for that family. For right now, there are no more small donations being collected until the family is able to find like a housing thing, and we'll, be able to do that. But there is, the one thing that they do have needs for is frankly food. And there's a meal train option floating around the town too, if you could look that. And spare a meal or two for this family is also very greatly appreciated. And thank you again, Village of Monee. End of report.
Thank you, Heidi. Let's go over to Trustee Wilson with Economic Development.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. No new business license have been issued since the last meeting. As you have heard, the Village Impact Study has been completed. This study is a vital tool for the future development of Monee. Talks continue with Seaford and Northern Builders in reference to commercial development on the west side of town. At this time, I would like to call upon Economic Development Director Bill Barnes, who would like to present the board with some paperwork in reference to village signage that's going to be taking place.
Hot dog.
Yes.
So this is not the full presentation. This is just kind of a quicker appetite, something I've been working on for the past, all since I was hired, really. Something that I see the need in, welcome kind of monument entryway signs coming in, gateway signage. So, and with this, you'll see, you've heard talk about a new logo, font, that type of thing. So the first one that I'll pass around, if you could just pass it along, is the kind of the main monument sign. The bottom portion of these signs is a double face. Well, all the signs are LED, so it's an LED message board that can change. We could eventually sell advertising space. If we wanted to make announcements, that type of thing. Park district. The next one would be a retrofit of the current sign that's out in front of Village Hall. So it would be, so everything is cohesive looking, and that would be changing the LED message board, because right now it's just one color and it needs to be updated. The last piece of paper is, we have all of these industrial kind of gateways and entrances with some have maybe plywood 4x8 signs or painted with the logo. We wanted to eventually do away with those. So this is about 15 foot tall. It's two-sided as well. Everything is illuminated. And then the signs, the slot signs that you see, the cabinet opens up, and as a business changes, you put a new one in and interchange those. So, and I'll do a bigger presentation the next board meeting for costs and kind of a bigger view and locations that we can talk about as far as recommendations, where these would go. So we'll talk more. But this is kind of a sampler platter.
And then to add to the sampler platter too, I know we had talked about subdivision signage too, that there are like 5 of them that don't have signs, entrance signs as well.
Okay. I mean, I can look at that, but then obviously it goes to cost because yes, these aren't cheap. So, so that could be a gradual thing as well.
Very good. Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go over to Public Safety with Trustee Uterus.
Thank you, Trustee Horn. Well, Monee Police Department is losing an officer. One of our young patrol officers is transferring to another agency. This unfortunately is becoming a common theme area-wide as departments are competing for quality candidates. Monee PD also has 2 other officers who have indicated that they will be retiring this year. A 3rd officer has indicated that he is contemplating retirement, and a 4th officer is leaning towards moving towards another agency. Monee has already begun background checks and potential replacements from the lateral entry list for these positions. These personnel concerns will be at the forefront of the request for the Police and Fire Commission for implementing some new applicant procedures. Our current list is basically depleted. This test will be a full year in advance of the normal cycle, but we recommend to the commission that they budget for testing in the fiscal year 2023. End of report.
Thank you. Let's go over to our attorney.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. I have 3 items for the board's review. The first item is the ordinance directing the sale of real estate. Upon passage of this ordinance, it will be published in a local newspaper, be open for bids, I believe, at the next board meeting. This is a property that we purchased probably 6-7 years ago. And I did get an appraisal to cover the village, but we need this ordinance directing the sale of real estate for bids.
Okay, do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Go ahead and vote.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Udris?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Yes.
Trustee Horn?
Yes.
1995.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. The second item is an ordinance declaring a surplus of, TIF surplus of $75,000. And we talked about this, I believe, at the last board meeting in form of a motion, but we do need this ordinance. Daryl, if the board approves it, will then issue a check to the Will County. Will County then will distribute the surplus money in accordance with their tax rate. But we do need this ordinance on file before we issue a check.
Make a motion? Would like to do that? Anybody?
I'll make that motion.
How about a second?
I'll second it.
And discussion?
I think it's important that we talk about, because I know myself and I'm sure the other trustees, after the last board meeting, I had several people asking me, this is, if we have a surplus, what are we doing for residents? And I think we need to have a little discussion about that before we approve, giving money back to taxing bodies, just to make sure the residents understand that, we haven't forgotten about them. We're, also going to, have some things in the works that we can do to give some relief to residents as well. If you would like to say something more about that, I don't want to.
Thank you, Trustee Udris. Yes, there is in progress as we speak, research going into the water usage in ways some creative ways to bring cost savings to the residents. I don't want to disclose all of it as it's preliminary in the works, but yes, we are closely researching and talking to other communities as well in regards to this.
Thank you.
If I might just add, for this rebate, as far as the monies or funds that were allocated to the different districts in order to encompass or incorporate the TIP district. So this is not residents' tax money or funds that are going to be rebated to businesses. These are the taxing districts, the taxing bodies. There were 9 districts: school district, fire district, just the name of 2. Monee being one of the 9, I believe, Council.
Yes, sir.
So this is from the TIP funds that were diverted from those districts to allocate funds for the TIF district. So since those funds haven't been maxed out or completed or depleted, that in order to gain compliance, or it makes it a little more palatable when we go to them and ask them for these TIF districts that they have to sign off on, because that money, those taxes are going to get deferred away from them into our TIF district fund. So then that way we can encourage economic development and putting back into the community. So this is being a stakeholder, being in a district. This is a way that the village can say, just as with the residents saying thank you for your participation, for supporting what Monee's doing and the future of Monee, because without their support, we wouldn't be able to do this. They could make our things a little bit more difficult, but when we prosper, everyone else should too, and also with the residents, also with the businesses. So just so that we have some clarity, that we understand that these funds, these monies, these taxes are not citizen taxes. These funds are that would have went to the taxing bodies, districts, in the TIF fund. So as Village Administrator Bautista mentioned, that there currently is in the works a plan to take care of the citizens also. This is just not a one-sided, one-pronged deal. This is for the whole. Monee is doing well. Previous administration and this administration have done some things right and are going to continue to do those things. And as long as the funds are there and available, that we're going to make sure they get in the right hands. So I thank everyone for supporting that, because it's difficult. When you talk about money, people get really sensitive. And you talk about tax dollars, people want to know, and rightfully so. But to know that this board, mayor, village administrator, board, that we're doing our due diligence, we're doing our job into making sure that the village is taken care of. Thank you.
So, Mike, I think, that's a great way to explain it too, and I just, to, kind of go along with that. People need to know this is not our savings account. This is not village funds that is declaring the overage. This is our TIF fund, the tax incremental financing funds that, we have saved and have not spent, that we are able to rebate back to those taxing bodies. To Scott's point too, this is not our tax money, and people need to understand that. We still have a great savings account, and we're working on things to make sure everyone is taken care of. But these funds that were declared an overage is not in our village savings accounts, is not in our funds. So that's why we're able to do that, and still taking into account what all of us need is a little bit relief.
Very good, thank you. Can we do a vote?
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Udris?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Yes.
Trustee Horn?
Yes.
1996.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. And the last item I distributed to the board is a memo of understanding. There'll be no action taken on this, but I want to distribute it to the board for their review for the next board meeting. Basically, I'll summarize it. This is a memo of understanding between the Village of Monee and Aqua with respect to future sanitary sewer service for the project that we've been talking about with Northern Builders on Cleveland Avenue, I believe it is. Some of that area is not in their service area, so we've been working with Aqua in good faith, and Northern for that matter, to expand that area. Aqua has made certain conditions in that agreement that we have to give them as much notice as we possibly can as to who the user will be that Northern intends to put on the site. We did send a copy to Northern for their review, and I indicated to Tom Kenrick from Northern that any memo of understanding that we enter into will be part of a redevelopment agreement. So they'll have to cooperate with us. Basically, the bottom line is Aqua wants as much notice as possible who's going to be occupying the premises. If it's a warehouse, that's one thing. If it's a manufacturer, that's a whole different situation. So we agree with Aqua in that respect. We'll have final action on it if the board deems appropriate at the next board meeting. We are making progress, as Trustee Wilson indicated, with Northern, but this is probably the most important issue right now. That's all I have, Mayor.
Very, very good, thank you, Council. Okay, let's continue on any unfinished business. How about new business? Okay, and let's open to the public non-agenda items at this point. Anybody else? Okay. And we do not need to go into executive session tonight, so I will make a call for an adjournment.
Make that motion.
Second.
Vote?
Trustee Udris?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Yes.
Trustee Horn?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
7:43 PM.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening.